Hillsong goes intimate with their new album, Team Night. Even if you don't agree with Hillsong, I recommend giving this album a listen. Let's talk about it. Hello and welcome to the video. My name is Justin and I'm all about worship guitar, helping you sound and play your best for Jesus. Let me preface this video by saying that listening to this album brings back memories. I was in Hillsong's city campus for 1 year in 2004, the first year of my studies in Sydney, Australia, where I lived a 10-minute walk from the campus building. Every Wednesday night was Team Night, so called because it was a gathering of creatives for teaching, imparting, fellowship, and simultaneously worship practice for the Sunday team. The night always started with a time of worship, and if memory serves me well, it felt like it was where the worship leaders and the musicians could go all out. Choruses and bridges could be repeated many more times here than on the Sunday. Worship leaders could break out into tongues for extended periods of time, and my favorite memory was Darlene Check giving every musician on the stage a chance to play a 16-bar solo in King of Majesty. Album recordings are monumental efforts in production and planning. Team Night mostly doesn't feel like that, and this is the biggest reason why you should listen to it. It's the Hillsong team almost without the veneer of production perfection. I'll soon tell you why. The singers attempt to hit very high notes and ad-libs that don't always hit the mark. The rhythm section doesn't always execute 100% strict groove discipline. The worship leaders break out into extemporaneous prayers and in-between words that aren't 100% correct, possibly spoken in the heat of the moment. And don't get me wrong, this isn't to disparage Hillsong and lay hate on them. Their raw sound is still executed at a very high level. But this should encourage us in realizing that the Hillsong team is human too. If you're a worship leader or music director like me, I'm sure you've played the comparison game. Why can't my team sound more like Hillsong? They can, and they do. Without the thousands of man-hours behind pre-production planning, where every note and every word spoken at a recording night is accounted for, the musicians from the Team Night album sound uncannily familiar. In fact, search clips of Hillsong worship fails long enough and you'll find that they make very familiar mistakes on stage.
Okay, I need the next bit of the words. What are they? We can see. Oh, we can see. There we go. Okay, let's 1, 2, 3. And we can see.
So we're in the key of D. I didn't see the key change, but the bass player saw it. The bass player went up to E. I stayed on D. The acoustic guitarist just took his right hand off and then stopped playing. The keyboard player held one chord and put his head down. And the drummer just started building.
Which leads me to one possible criticism of the album. There's still some veneer of production perfection, and it manifests in the vocal performance. There's still some usage of auto-tune, and you can tell because the main singers that take center stage are perfectly in pitch 100% of the time. A quick peek behind audio production techniques. You can tell when auto-tune is used by hearing the ADSR of a vocal performance. ADSR stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. Every sound has these four components. With a human voice, unless you're supremely talented or extremely well trained, pitch fluctuation can occur in any of the four components. If you attack the note too hard, you get sharp. If you don't have enough breath to sustain a note, you get flat. This is where auto-tune can help eliminate the pitch fluctuations and transients. I'm old enough to remember a time when Antares auto-tune first came out and it was super obvious that the effect was being used, but now we are approaching a time where it can be quite subtle. Some would argue that since this is a raw album, you should be raw all the way, like Aaron Keyes in the living room. He's a talented singer, so his pitch fluctuations are minimal, but they are obvious in a recording. On Team Night, not so, and I get it, honestly. The music business is hard, and Hillsong's music as part of their outreach strategy towards non-believers is no secret. Non-believers who don't yet share the ideals of love and grace towards imperfect musicianship. Non-believers who may be so used to a certain level of production that unless they encounter Christianity at a similar level, they're not going to even consider the message. I'm not saying we should all start using auto-tune in our Sunday services, but I'm also not saying that it's fine to be out-tuned. We serve the living God, and He deserves our 1000% effort to serve Him with our musical gifts. Gifts that need nurturing and cultivating through serving in any and every possible ministry opportunity. Gifts that can be lost if we don't put in the time to maintain and upkeep. So you may disagree with Hillsong's theology and ethos, but there's one thing we can all agree when we listen to their music. We can't get there without constant practice and constant serving. In conclusion, Hillsong's Team Night is a breath of fresh air amidst a plethora of production-perfect music. It shows us that Hillsong musicians aren't that much different from us, and encourages us that we can all aspire to sound as good as Hillsong. But this is not to say that Hillsong doesn't have its fair share of problems, which ministry doesn't. In this next video, I talk about a small manifestation of celebrity culture in Hillsong when the publicity material for their combined tour with Chris Tomlin came out. What can be done to address celebrity culture for worship ministries? Find out in the next video. See you there.